As Josh Gordon has been conditionally reinstated for the final 2 weeks of the season. Gordon was suspended indefinitely in December 2019 for violations of the league's policies on performance-enhancing substances and substances of abuse. Seattle is 8-3. They're second in the NFC, 1 game behind the Saints. Max Kellerman, who is better than the Seattle Seahawks right now?
Ooh, they were my preseason pick after they made the trade for Jamal Adams. But my original preseason pick, it looks like I should have stuck with them, especially when they made that move for Quan Alexander, who hasn't been splashy but has been effective. That's the New Orleans Saints, the best team in the NFC. And honestly, at this moment, I don't think it's very close. The Saints have been playing lights-out defense, guys. Every level of the defense has been playing great. If you talk about the best defenses in the NFL right now, you got to talk about the Saints. They're at least in the conversation, if not winning that debate. I'm talking about defense with the Saints. They're doing this without Drew Brees. No Drew Brees. Is Taysom Hill a gadget player? Well, it's a hell of a gadget. He can do every single thing you want on a football field. I wonder if he can play defense, because he can do them all at a high enough level that you can actually play him at the position. You can split Taysom Hill out wide if you want. He can catch a pass out of the backfield. He can run out of the backfield. He can block. What do you want him to do? He can do everything, and he can read defenses and throw the ball. And he's just holding it down till one of the all-time greats gets back, who will have a nice long rest so he won't look, worn down at the end of the day in the playoffs. Guys, Stephen A., when you look at what the Saints finally have, I've been bringing it up since the preseason. What have they been missing? It's been a really complete team minus one little sore spot, a number 2 receiver. What's Emmanuel Sanders? Hell of a number 2 receiver. What's Michael Thomas? Hell of a lead receiver, one of the best in the game. How about Kamara? Is he any good? Yeah, one of the very best. They got everything right now. And when they get Drew Brees back, it's going to be even better, because what we see with Taysom Hill is put him on the field. What are you going to do? How do you know what's going to happen? He can do anything. Saints are the best team in the NFC.
To me, Max, I'm going to say nobody right now. I don't think we can definitively say that. I mean, listen, when I'm talking, and what I mean by that, just for clarification purposes, clearly the Saints look great and they've won 8 straight. We got that. I'm just looking ahead, Max, and I'm projecting okay, who am I going to depend on? Who's the team I'm going to believe in come playoff time? That's basically how I'm answering this question, because we know that as of right now, if you've won 8 straight, even after losing Drew Brees, and Taysom Hill comes in off the bench and he's completing 70% of his passes, even though he hasn't thrown one single touchdown, okay? But he's completing 70% of his passes, and you look at the defense, I can't argue with that. What I would say to you is this: the Seattle Seahawks, even though they've got 3 losses on the season, don't be fooled by what you're seeing here. The reality is that when you really, really look at these boys, particularly with the acquisition of Dunlap, now that you got Jamal Adams back in the lineup because he was out for a couple of weeks because he was hurt, and then they just got Chris Carson back into the lineup because he was out for a few games due to his injury, and then we look at the greatness of Russell Wilson, consistently being asked to carry the extreme load that he has carried, and he's gotten this far. I think Seattle right now is the best team in the NFC because of Wilson, because of Carson, because DK Metcalf is an absolute stud and Tyler Lockett is no joke. And oh, by the way, Greg Olsen, who was in Carolina for years, is one of the more reliable tight ends in football. It's just that he's not Kelsey or Kittle. Okay, we got that. We understand that. But in the end, a couple other dudes he's not as well. But in the end, when you look at the multitude of weapons that they have available, and you look at what you're anticipating they're going to be defensively, particularly now that they can get to the quarterback, and now Jamal Adams is back in the lineup as well. I just look at the Seahawks in the NFC, and there's nobody that I would look at and say, excuse me, they're going to take these brothers out. They're better than the Seahawks, because when I look at the New Orleans Saints, even with Drew Brees, something happens to them come playoff time. They're just not as potent offensively. Defensively, you know what? I give them credit where credit is due. For years, they were horrific. Then they improved over the last couple of years, and this year, they're really, really damn good on the defensive side of the ball. Make no mistake about it. But I'm still not sold on them collectively, offensively, even with Michael Thomas, even with Emmanuel Sanders, even with Alvin Kamara, once Drew Brees comes back. I'm not sold that they've got what it takes come postseason time the way I'm sold on the Seattle Seahawks because of Russell Wilson.
You're making the argument that they're not perfect, and you're pointing to Drew Brees' performance in the playoffs, where he's looked like an old, beaten-up guy by
all of them, not just Drew Brees.
That's my whole point. But that's my whole point about the Saints and Drew Brees this year is, it's a big if. If he comes back healthy, right, in time, especially if he has a game or two before the playoffs, but even if it's just for the playoffs, I don't expect to see a tired old Drew Brees. I expect to see a rested Drew Brees who's more motivated than ever because this is probably it, and he may be on the best team he's ever been on. Just consider this, Stephen A. You said how you lamented for so many years the defense. They don't give him the defense. You know why we're not really thinking about the Bucs in the Super Bowl right now? Why the Bucs aren't in this conversation? Because of the beating the Saints put on them. Not week one, when the Bucs were, of course, they'd just been thrown together because the Saints didn't look great. I'm talking about the last game they played in early November. Saints 38, Bucs 3. The mighty Bucs offense managed 3 points against that Saints team. And by the way, the Niners 13, the Falcons 9, the Broncos 3. It'd be one thing to say, yeah, the Falcons and the Broncos, but actually the Falcons are capable of putting up points. The Bucs, a field goal. They almost 38-3, Stephen A. The Saints have been not only arguably the best defense in the league, but certainly over the last month they played the best defense. Their defense is rounding into form at just the right time, and they should have a rested Brees back. Now, if you're saying the Seattle Seahawks have a puncher's chance and a good one, yeah, of course. They got Russell Wilson, one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL and an all-time great in his prime. They got Metcalf. They got Lockett. They got a whole lot. They have Carson back, right? And Carlos. They have a whole lot on offense. They have an historically bad defense. I think Jamal Adams, given time with Bobby Wagner, it's enough high-end playmakers to get them more respectable. But I suspect, this is a bad defense. The Saints, they're not quite as explosive on offense, but they're damn good. And they have the best defense in the league. Historically bad defense on the one hand, best defense in the NFL on the other. That's a whole lot of that Russell Wilson's got to compensate for, and he's not compensating for it over an average quarterback. He's got to be the difference over Drew Brees at quarterback. I don't see it.
Well, see, to me, you're looking at the Seattle Seahawks that gave up 44 points in a loss to the Buffalo Bills nearly 4 weeks ago. I'm looking at what they've been since, particularly with the acquisition of Carlos Dunlap from the Bengals. He's got 4 sacks since he's arrived and a number of pressures. And again, with Jamal Adams being back in that line, that defense has looked very, very different. Now, they beat Arizona. They lost. Who did they lose to? They lost to the Los Angeles Rams, gave up 23 points, lost 23-16. Then they won the last 2 against Arizona and Philadelphia. That defense has not looked the same. The defense has definitely elevated, and I think that's the part that you're missing when you think about the Seattle Seahawks. This is not the team for the first that you saw for the first 8 games or so during the regular season. I'm talking about the team that I've watched over the last 3 weeks or so and how vastly that defense has improved. I'm sorry. I'm not sleeping on them at all. They would be my favorites in the NFC at this particular moment in time.
I like the Dunlap pickup. The reason I switched to the Seahawks was the Jamal Adams pickup. I also have to admit, I have to concede the point. The Seahawks went from historically bad, I'm being a little slick there, to better and better as the season's gone on, especially recently. But that better and better is one thing. Best defense in the league is another. So I just don't think Russell Wilson's premium over arrested Drew Brees, presuming he comes back, is enough to offset all that. These are the 2 teams I like in the NFC. I like the Saints more.
You sure? You sure
One thing that does help is that Seattle has the...
You sure about that? I mean, you like them now. You sure they ain't going to be Seattle in 2 weeks? I'm just checking. We'll see.
Well, we'll see how they play. Let's see how they play. If we get news that Drew Brees ain't going to be back, now we can talk.
Oh, here we go.
All right, Fred Astaire.
Here we go.
Fred Astaire.
I actually did used to tap dance when I was little.
Here.
Guys, Seattle has the easiest remaining schedule, by the way. For some reason, I got a feeling about Seattle this year. You know, women's intuition. Definitely trust it. Take that to the bank. All right, when we come back, NBA to get into with Big Perkins.